I deem it a great honor to speak to you today. The development of the coalition over the years and how it's grown it's just been totally an awesome experience. So I'll get going today. How many can identify this flower? Raise your hand. Really? Raise them high. I want to know. Really? Most don't know. Why do you know that, Cindy? You like flowers? You like the prairie? That's our state flower. That's the American past flower. I looked it up this morning just to make sure I was right. I took that picture 25 or 30 years ago. So, I was looking through all my photos because I like to try to be a little original, but, there's probably some things you're going to, if you've heard me speak, you're going to see, oh, I've heard him say that before, and that's okay. But I really wanted to bring this to light, and it really hit home just listening to Dwayne again. It's about the ecology, isn't it? That's what it's about. So this flower doesn't grow a lot of places. And we've changed some things, and it just can't handle it. Okay, so really you can't do that here. That could be a statement, or that could be a question. And I had a hard time with this here, the exclamation point. I'm kind of big on things like that. Is that really a question, or is that a statement? And it's both. Okay. And we had a good conversation last night before I headed up to my room. Someone commented about my title and how they related to it. And I think there's a whole bunch of people in this room that have been doing no-till or soil health practices, cover crops, all that stuff. They've heard this. I think there's many that can relate to the title. So I've spent too much time on my title slide. Going through all the pictures, I came across this photo. This was, a glossy photo. And I had to get it in my computer, and that's why it looks like it looks, because, it's old technology, right? But can you see what it is? It's a picture of a field. You're looking at the slope, and there's a lot of erosion that happened here. You can see it right here. That was in 1993, 2 miles from our farm. Not our land, and I'm not trying to pick on my neighbor. But I still drive around the country, and I did back then, taking pictures of all the stuff, okay? Well, here's the sad thing. That's that same field in 2019, June. The same thing's happening. It's sad. It's all I can say. And you probably wonder, well, how can you be so emotional about such a thing? It's like, can't people figure things out? I guess that's what makes me the most upset. So this is during the thunderstorm in June. I can't remember the day. It's pouring like the dickens, and I'm sitting there taking that picture out the car window. This is across the road. 20 seconds after that previous picture, there goes the water down the kind of makeshift waterway in the other field on the other side of the road, and it's spilling out here into the field. And I should have took a picture this last summer, because this farmer did a bunch of dirt work here in this field, and he cleaned this all out. There's a big mound of soil here, because when that soil comes through that culvert, it kind of takes a breath, right? Spreads out and drops its sediment load. Okay, and there it is. So what one farmer lost, another gained, kinda. And then this is I need to back up. Don't work. Can you back me up? Doesn't work. It's a sequence. There. That's downstream about, a half a mile, as fast as I could drive down there. No point. I didn't launch a boat. I wasn't a little boy and launched a sailboat, but it would have been kind of fun. See if it could have made it. But here's that stream coming down, carrying a whole bunch of stalks, and I just sat there for the longest time watching the stalks pile up. Okay? And then I went across the road and took a picture of what it looked like on the other side of the road. So I'm not here to point out that downer. It's a big downer, and this is happening all over. It really is. Are we making strides in soil health? Absolutely, we are. There's a lot of work to do. So that's the water erosion part. Now here's the wind erosion part, and then I'm going to go on and I'm going to get more positive. But just 4 pictures. I'm going to put the captions up there. We've got the worst here, low residue crops. I'll just say it, soybeans. Conventionally tilled, baled the soybean residue and fall applied anhydrous ammonia. And we've got dirt drifts. I'm just going to say dirt, but soil drifts in the field. Then we go up here. Here's a low residue field. It's conventional till, but all they did is put on fall anhydrous ammonia, and we still have soil blowing. Then we go down here, that low residue soybean crop again, conventional till, no fall tillage, and it's still blowing. Okay. And then up in the corner is the low residue soybeans, long-term no-till. That's my field. Okay, you can see, you just drive around and see. Who was it? Jay Goose, Dr. Goose. You can learn a lot by looking. And I think that's a Yogi Berra quote, but I can't remember. You can learn a lot by looking. And he even said, even a blind hog finds a nut once in a while. Okay. So anyway, those quotes. So I'm going to cover the soil health principles. I didn't have it in here. It should be obvious to you right now, but these are according to me, okay? My kind of thoughts about it. Protect soil structure, open pores at the soil surface for greater water and air exchange. That's why we need the armor, okay? Protect. Keep the pores open so the soil can breathe. No-till enables soil structure to develop and pores to remain open. Releases less carbon. That's my take-home messages for doing no tillage. Diversity provides soil biology something more to feed on than just monocrops. Promotes soil biological diversity. It's a buffet. Cover crops are a buffet for the soil microbes. That's what that means to me. Living root as much as possible is the place of the great exchange. I think I've said that many, many times. But it's that interface at the root, the liquid carbon, Jim Ristow talks about, and others, where the carbohydrates are exchanging with the minerals, and then we have the aggregates forming. The great exchange. Sunlight meaning earth, basically. Livestock integration adds nutrient cycling of crop residues, must ensure that the other principles are followed. I think that's big for me. I've been on farms where they're trying to improve soil health, and they've got cattle out there, and hey, they had too much rain or too much snow, and the cattle left tracks. I'm in a higher rainfall zone. I got to admit that, and I've witnessed that. So if you follow the other principles and you've got good soil health, you can withstand those things, just like the tire track or the implement, okay? Treat it as such. So a little bit about our farm. It's right there, right on the border. Here's the border of Minnesota and South Dakota. I'm not a big farmer. There's my fields. I'm stretched out about 12 miles. Our soil types are Nora, Crofton, and Moody. The Nora Crofton are very eroded phases of the Moody. That Crofton can have none dark soil to 4 or 5 inches. None, I said none. because the parent material is showing in some places. So the productivity ratings aren't very good on those two. The Moody's the best, and then I've got others, which are my good soils. So I'm averaging about 61 to 68 productivity rating on those soils. Here's the farm in the 1940s. My great-grandfather came there approximately 1896 and built that up, as did many, many others. Here it is in the 1980s. And here it is in 2020. That's how things change. So anyway, we're building on our ancestors. There's no doubt about it. So remember that. Anyway, there's Grandpa in 1920s. Horses by the big house. Here's my other grandpa doing the corn on the ear. Young people, don't remember that? I mean, that was a lot of work. Okay, so the history. Prior to 1925, oats, corn, alfalfa, a very small dairy. Horses pulled the plow or their equipment, transitioned to tractors. My grandpa grew hemp prior to World War I, and we still have hemp in our field. I can show you right where it's growing. It's there, okay? I sprayed it again this year. The big barn was built in the 20s. Dairy slowly expanded, tillage getting more intense, of course, because tractors came in. Soybeans came in the 1950s. The dairy quit in 76. Tractors getting bigger, more intensive tillage. In the 1980s, we were corn, soybean rotation. I remember moldboard plowing. I was taught how to moldboard plow. We went to chisel plow. We went to field cultivator. We went to soil finisher. We went to one trip. And eventually, we changed. Terraces constructed to fight the erosion, and we had a few old fields, not many. Here's the picture of my grandpa Weedy combining beans in 1954, actually the fall of 54. The first self-propelled combine came in the 1980s. There's our version on our farm. Terraces went in the 1980s as well. Here's one of our quarters right here. You can see that it's all terraces. All terraces. Just a Band-Aid. That's all that is. Just a Band-Aid. It was a big regret because once we started to see the light a little bit and doing all no-till, just focusing on the no-till, and that's a mistake. Don't just focus on that. We learned that our infiltration rates were increasing because the stream by the house never flowed when it rained big. It didn't flow anymore. So we knew we were on the right track. So the terraces came out because the equipment got bigger, and you know what? If you farmed around narrow-based terraces, this is a field border. Every one of them is a field border. And you know what field borders are like, right? That's where the weeds are. That's where the weeds are. And when we made this terrace, we pushed that good soil up, or what we thought was good soil, and put it in a mound, and then we had 8 to 12 rows of nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because we uncovered less organic matter soil. So we spent a decade trying to build those soils back up underneath those terraces. So I convinced my folks that, hey, we got to get rid of these things, and all we could remember is how expensive they were to put in and how expensive they could be to take them out. And so I'll buy my own dozer and push them over, and I love to run a dozer. I should have run heavy equipment in my life because I really love it. So we pushed a few over with that, and then eventually bought a blade, and I started blading them over, and at the end, Dad says, you ripped your shoulder out. I'm going to hire it done. And he hired it done. So they're gone. The push-ups are gone. We tried some spring wheat in 1999 because of my experience at SDSU and working for the researchers there and just sharing the success we had growing wheat. And I love to grow wheat. I love it. So we tried it, and you know, corn and beans just kicked it. I mean, economically, we couldn't argue about it. We grew a pretty decent crop. It was 50 to 60 bushel. I can't remember exactly, but it still just, it wouldn't do it. I guess we're kind of well known for, you know, older equipment that's well maintained. I really believe that's sustainable, or more sustainable. We use that iron longer. I don't know, maybe we just didn't want to change, but anyway, we keep it going. So the modern history of our farm, it was all corn and beans basically in the 1990s. We started no-tilling in 91, 92. Dwayne Beck, really the reason for that, you know, we're Beckites, and I knew others that changed as well at that time, and that's really cool. You know, the early 90s were hard on no-till. I mean, where we were from, it rained all the time, and we couldn't get the seed furrow closed, and, you know, we hauled large amounts of liquid fertilizer with the tractor. We banded everything. In 2000, the tanks came off, and we started broadcasting all of our fertilizer. And I know that just goes right in the face of what Dwayne just said, and I'm sorry, but this is our experience. You know, it's all about the soil health. It's all about the mycorrhizae fungi. It's all those good things. The water infiltration, you know. We're confident that we don't have a lot of phosphorus running off because of our water infiltration. Plus, research that I was helping Ron Gelderman do at SDSU, and then Antonio Malrino, I was not helping, but he did it at Iowa, showed that broadcast was working really good. We moved residues out of the corn row extensively. I'll show a picture of that when we first started. We used a fluff and plant drill for beans. I don't know if Doreen remembers that, but the fluff and plant and the pinch and plant, and we chose a fluff and plant. So basically that's vertical tillage with a drill behind it. That's basically what that is. Okay? It worked. And in 13, I changed the whole farm. My dad was always after organic matter. I have to say that, honestly. We did, you remember the set-aside acres? Remember all those programs? You had to set aside acres. Well, we always had a cover crop on it. You know, we always planted oats with a clover or something like that. But we plowed it down. But he knew the importance of organic matter. He was always concerned about not having alfalfa. Really, that meant perennials to me in the rotation. So again, made a change because of Dwayne. Got rid of the fluff and plant drill, went to a pinch and plant drill, and I'm not really moving any residue out of the row anymore. Our crops that we've planted are oats, cereal rye, soft white winter wheat, and triticale. The last cover crop blend in 21 was all of these. I'm not going to focus on that a lot. Diversity is key. We've flown in cereal rye over mature corn in September. Just love that. Worked really good, but because of oats and soft white winter wheat and now foundation triticale, we can't have rye on our farm. And so I quit growing the cereal rye. Not because it's bad. Don't walk away saying I told you not to do that. But if you're growing seed crops, you don't want cereal rye on your farm. You just don't, okay? So anyway, that went off. You know, we're zone mapped. I do variable rate fertilizer. I've got yield maps, and I've got technology now on that old equipment. The new rotation is corn is stacked to build up the carbon to make it across the 3-year period with the low carbon crops. And that is so true. At the end of the rotation, going back to that first year corn, when that corn is growing, my soil can be almost bare because the night crawlers and the other biology have consumed everything. And that's no joke. There's people that have been in some of my fields. But though last year in the drought, we had a really hot, dry May, June, and July, the residue hung around. It did. So I was kind of happy about that. But I like to see it go. I like to feed the soil. Pest cycles are challenged with corn out for 3 years, beans out for 2 years, and grain out for 4. That's Dwayne's, one of his mantras, fool them, fool the pests, and then we don't have to spray them, and we don't. The rotation forces me to rotate weed control herbicides. It's just, you get an education in that, and it forces me to rotate my active ingredients, which is good, because we have Roundup resistance in mare's tail and water hemp, and those are the big two, I guess, on our farm. We're guilty of using too much glyphosate, as everybody else probably did too, and so the rotation forces me to do other things. Second year corn is tricky. I have to focus on hybrids, rated well for corn after corn. And I'm going to show you an example of that. I'm still learning. We do not deviate from the rotation. We do not sit around and say, corn is this much, wheat is this much, flax is that much. We don't do that. Diversity is your friend. There'll always be something that you do well with. And as Dwayne said, I learned the meaning of a new word, hubris. And if you're not aware of that word, just Google it, look it up, because it describes a lot of what's going on. We focus on net profit, not gross bushels. That's what we do. Okay. Here's the rotation. When it was corn and beans, you knew what was going to be corn and you knew what was going to be beans the next year, and it was easy. But when you start throwing in just one more crop and then you're thinking about the rotation out, I did this in 14, and I projected out to about here, and then I've had to add. So I'm adding, and that's me. I just do that. I gotta be organized, because my first responsibility is my job at SDSU. So I have to be very organized and very efficient with my farming operation. And no-till has, I couldn't sit on a tractor to 2 a.m. anymore. I came home at college and did that, in 85 and 86, and chisel plowed till 2, 3 in the morning. I don't do that anymore. No-till is my friend, okay, because of the labor savings and the time savings. And that's why I can work at SDSU. And it used to be, it's not that I didn't care about a poor crop, but if I grew a good average or above crop, I was happy. But now, since soil health and the focus has come back to everybody doing that, including me, now I have to be on my game, because everybody's looking for that fault. They're looking for that, oh, he failed, or boy, that don't look good. And I don't know how many times I've had to tell people, you don't harvest your crops in June, Dwayne, if he's still in the room. It's just a common thing. I mean, every year. Had to do it with a good friend last year. There's the first planter. There's all the tanks. We built our own fertilizer coulters out of, I had a good welding friend, and we built a very minimal disturbance shank, and there was 2 tubes on it. We had UAN and ATS going in one tube. We had starter in the other tube because I couldn't put it all on the seed. And we were putting everything down with that rig right there. Every 13 acres, stop. Fill 2 liquids. Every other stop, fill the corn. That gets old. That gets old. But that's what we did. Here's my planter today. I have no active downforce. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something there. I think if you're transitioning to no-till and you've got this extreme variability in your field, I think that's the way to go, I'm convinced, if you can afford it. I just have springs, and over the years, you can see the weights here on this toolbar. We had a hard time keeping that old planter in the ground, and we modified that planter extensively. Okay, we had the weights, and over the first 10-year period, those weights eventually just got shed. The soil improved. And now today, I got a different planter today, and I'm showing you the whole package. I don't use the whole package most of the time. I only use, that chain has not been on the last 2 years. I'm just going to tell you that because I'll show you some pictures why. But this is on when I do no-till corn on corn. We have some big yields in places, and that just cuts that stalk so nice. And then the residue manager really isn't doing a thing. It's just if there's a pile of stalks where I screwed up and stopped with the combine and let a bunch come out, it's there to take care of that. That's what it's really there for. But it's, here's the most important thing, sharp openers. Sharp. That's your main thing. That's your main piece of equipment right there, is those two openers. And then I've got the spoke closers on the back. And, back in the day, we didn't have the internet when we started out, and we had to go to meetings like this, and came to several no-till meetings out here and visited the booths and things and talked to equipment people, and that's how we got our information. Pick up a phone number. Now you got the internet. You can search at will, right? Here's the cereal rye, or this is actually wheat now, but the cereal rye would have looked similar to that, flown into corn. That's in the spring. Really like that. Of course, I'm planting beans here green, but this is after the wheat because I let the wheat volunteer, and then I actually seed a little bit wheat with my cover crop, and it's in the spring. Love to plant green. Dwayne made a comment about irrigating and then planting. I'm convinced I could have planted this in the rain. I'm totally convinced. The ground carries. I got good soil health. The planter's going to stay clean because that green is going to keep it clean. I want it. That's on my bucket list. I want to plant in the rain some year, someplace. But anyway, it's just an awesome seed bed. And hey, there's your water control. There's your water control. If it's too wet, let it use some more water. Last year was the first year I've taken my green out a little earlier. We had a very dry into 20 and into 21, and I had it there. I let it grow. I think it got mostly about this tall, and I took it out. Most times I take it out maybe a day or two before I plant or a day or two after. For soybeans. I haven't planted corn green. I'm not going to do that. But there's the corn and the soybeans. Hardly any residue moved. I like that a lot. Planter just floats on top. It's great. There's that corn. 204 there in that field. There's oats into all that thick residue. There's the soybeans. I mean, what can I say? There's the corn on corn. Try to plant next to the row as best as possible. I've got RTK steering. You can see the hill in the background. It works okay. I'm doing a good job. But if I can just get it between the rows and leave those corn stalks standing, that I've won. I figure that's a big win. So that's what I do there. New practices. Last night there was a question about flying into growing crops. I just talked about the wheat we fly in, or the cereal rye we did. We were trying Cominglina over soybeans, and I dropped some in on corn as well. We need a winter broadleaf desperately as a cover crop to start growing there in the spring. So we're trying the Cominglina. Try something. You want it. If it fails, you want it to. How does it go? You want it to hurt enough that you remember it. So I did 15 acres of each. I mean, it wasn't a big check, but you remember things like that. So I'm trying that. Pollinator plots. My mom goes, "What are you doing out there?" And well, that's pollinator plot. Well, where are the flowers at? and they don't grow right away. Some do. Some came right away, and so there's the pictures of the two species that I could find that came. And it's weeds. It needs mowing. It's going to look beautiful someday. There's the plain. We're calibrating for the Cominglina. If you don't know that seed, it's like pepper. It's very fine, We did, David and I, we did some work the year before. I drilled some in November and didn't come, and it came in the spring, and it was really impressive. So this year I'm trying to fly it in, and I had no growth last fall. Nothing. Okay? So don't go running out here saying, Anthony did that. Working with Jim Ristow, a friend, he's big into the biology and the regenerative ag, and he's got me thinking, and I put some worm juice on some seed as a seed treatment he gave me. And then he gave me a tub of compost, and here it is right here, and it's sat in my shop, and what am I going to do with this thing? And it sat in my shop, and finally moved it outside because I needed the room, and there it sat. And got 3 inches of rain one night. Filled it up because it ran off my little roof I have there over my door. And I walked by, and I just couldn't help but notice, and you can't see it in the picture, but that stuff looks really good. And I got to harvest that. So I started decanting some of that off with this pitcher, and I put it in a jug, and then I put my strainer in my sprayer, and I poured it in the sprayer. And you probably can't see that there, but it's good-looking stuff. We could put this in a jug and sell it. Oops. You can make your own. I don't know what it's doing for me yet. I don't know. But I just wanted to go through the process. Had no idea I could use it someday, but here it is. Okay, so really it's the science. That's why I believe it. I'm a scientist. I don't believe, I don't understand the science here yet. I'm an inorganic agronomist. I'm not an organic agronomist. There's an order to things in science. The inorganic came first, and now the organic is coming. And we can have a discussion why that happened, but it's just happened. So I respect, a lot of respected soil scientists are saying the same thing. Dr. Tom Schumacher. High praise for Tom. He was teaching this stuff when it wasn't even talked about, okay? So, lots of mentors there. That's good. So history has shown us the depletion of soil and water resources leads to social downfall. Dwayne mentioned all the books. Find the books. We have lots of farmers that, are around the world giving us good examples. Why do policies continue to support soil destructive practices? Once you all go home and think about that. How are we doing? I asked my agronomist neighbor, what's your best corn? This year it was 240. These are his soils. They have very high productivity ratings. They're good soil. So and here are mine, and I just took my yields. Here's my yields. Take the picture. I'm sharing you my corn yields from last year. I had a really hard time deciding to do that or not. Had these 4 fields here, ranged from 149 to 205. This is the mother-in-law corn, Dwayne, right here. That's where I take her, even though she don't come very often. But so if I use my productivity rating, my neighbor's productivity rating, you can see how I did this. It's just a ratio. Mine should be about 173. And I was at 205 in that field. That's a win for me. Wasn't 240? I don't think I can get that yet. Someday we'll be there. Okay, we're building soil. Here's corn after corn, 182. Same thing, productivity rating 168 on that field. Corn after corn, 196. Same thing, corn after corn, 149. Oh, what happened? Wrong hybrid. Same management as this field right here that did 182, right next to each other, or kitty corner kind of. Really disappointed when we went in that field with the combine. My draw just dropped. Like, what did I do wrong here? Did I even fertilize this field? Went through my mind, and crap. What happened? Talked to my agronomist. Yeah, Anthony, that's a very offensive hybrid. It did pour all over our neighborhood. Oh, jeez, I feel good. Feel bad I got 150 bushels, but boy, I felt good that it wasn't me. That hybrid just didn't like the June heat. Okay, I better get going. I practice what I teach, soil fertility. Here's my phosphorus soil test on the farm. It's got variability, different fields at different times, but that line is showing I'm maintaining soil test phosphorus. There's pH. It's slightly going up. Slightly. I've only limed one field, and that was 2003. I did one. And then there's a zinc. I don't put on a lot of zinc, but that responds to increases in organic matter. Just does. There's K. I'm worried about K. Okay. I've got 3 zones on my farm. There's soil test and organic matter. There's the phosphorus. There's the K, whatever. I'm not going to hone in on that. Here's my N rates. Zone 1's my best soil is 120. Zone 2 is a little poorer, 130. Zone 3 is my poorest soil. I'm at 150. That's the little piece that I'm starting to talk about when I talk about soil fertility, but you're not going to find that in the SDSU recs. Okay? You're not going to find that there. I just decided 3 years ago, this is what I'm going to do. I've got some good friends in the room, with a lot of respected friends in the room that are in the business, and they've won me over there. Okay? They've won me over. So that's why I've done that. Here's the carbon. Carbon belongs to you. Build it and keep it. If they want to pay you for practices, take it. Just make sure you're getting the most you can get. That's my blunt message. I can be kind of blunt sometimes, but it's a crazy world. Anyway, here's the carbon on our farm. This is organic matter, okay? Goes up. I did a bunch of work comparing organic matter and carbon because we run them on the same samples. 2 independent studies pretty much verify that relationship pretty well. You can't argue with it. So I converted my organic matter to carbon, and I'm building carbon here, and it's worth at $100 a ton CO2, we're at about $1,700 an acre over the last 30 years, 29 years. Okay, good friend of mine, Almiron, from Crooks. His wife gave me his data. Here it is. Very impressive. He's changing organic matter by 0.05, 0.07, and 0.1 if I look at different years of, in the past, okay? So not a huge increase, really not. Al's a good farmer. Al's a really good farmer. So, those are the increases that we come up with, very small per year. And you need to remember that. That's how important this journey is. There's the organic carbon. Al's got $2,000 to $5,000 there built up at $100 a ton CO2 carbon equivalent. What about South Dakota? So I got a friend that, again, gave me some data. I'm not going to share you who that is. I believe in the integrity of things like that. But lots of farms, 15 farms, 7,000 samples. And what do you do with this data? And he knew I really like to play with data. And so I did. And what do you make of this stuff? Because it's all over the board. And you got all these farms. And so I came down to productivity rating. I really did. Soil productivity rating, like it or hate it, whatever your opinion is, but it was the most common thing I could use to relate all these farms. And that's what I did. And so I also divided these soils into 4 groups. What I would call non-marginal soils, the good cropland, our coarse textured gravel soils, our wetland soils, and our soils that tend to be salty. And I eventually started seeing relationships develop in the data, and that's what these goofy lines are with all these goofy points. I didn't want to bore you with 5 different slides, so I put them all on one. Basically, you can see as productivity level goes up with these groups, the non-marginal, the coarse gravels, and the wetlands, as productivity goes up, so does our carbon sequestration. Because you're going to see here there's a 0. This is negative. We're losing a lot of carbon on some of our farms. You're going to say, were these no-till farms, were these conventional till farms? Yeah, I got that story too. But the bigger message was the soil itself, their productivity rating of the soil. So some of these need a lot of attention. A lot. There's an opportunity there, huge. Some we're building. Now, the salty soils are confusing to me. As productivity rating goes up, that carbon appears to be going down. And I think it has something to do with the last 30 years, those salts have developed, and they were really productive soils. And I think a lot of farmers will tell you this, that those could be the most productive soils on my farm if they didn't have that issue. And now we don't have crops growing on them, so we see that decrease in carbon. That's my take on this data. But the big picture is a lot of soils need some help, really big help. All of them do, but if you think we're doing great things in agriculture for building carbon, the story's right here, in my mind. So I'm gonna quickly go now. I did some native grass and cropland comparisons. Here's the carbon, a big difference. Native grass, of course, much higher. This is the tall grass to mid-grass prairie, unlike Dwayne's slide where it's the short grass prairie in Montana. The pH was a shocker. The cropland pH is almost 2 units less than the native grass. I'm not going to stand here and give you a lecture on soil fertility, but it's our nitrogen fertilizer use. If you want to know more about that, come find me. Bulk density, much higher on the cropland. We've taken the porosity out of the soil. So I was lucky enough to work with Sandeep and Navdeep Kumar, wonderfully intelligent people, guys from India. They did a study. Here they are out in a different field taking samples at 6 a.m. in the morning. Thought that was a great picture. Here they are taking their cores. He took the cores in plastic and put them in you all maybe know what that is. I've been in one of those. That's a CT scanner, right? Took an image of that soil. And that's something. Here are the results. He had native grass, conventional tillage, corn, beans, and then a soil health system. The green is the pores. The green is the spaces, the open voids in the soil. You can see the native grass is superior, and you can see the difference between the no-till soil health system, all of them right there, all of them going on, all of the principles, and then the conventional till. You can see the difference. The numbers tell us the difference as well. Much higher porosity in the native grass, much lower in the conventional tillage, right? That's just what the picture showed. The bulk density, same thing, much higher in the conventional till, the lowest in the native grass. I likened it to this story. If I want to go get some dirt or soil for my sister or my mom on the farm, where do I go? I go to our tree grove. Why do I go to our tree grove? Because it's easy to shovel. And you can tell the difference. It's like shoveling, I don't know what. It's just, you know. You go out in the field, even in a long-term no-till field, you start digging a hole, and you can tell the difference. And it's real. It's real. Okay? So how much water can it move within the soil? At that conventional tillage, we're not even an inch per hour. With the soil health system, we're near 5 inches per hour, and with the native grass, we're just slightly over 8. Okay? Carbon, big differences too. How you'd expect it to be. Okay, if we look at the pie graph, and there's one out here on this tunnel thing on the side, and we look at our textbooks, we look at the ideal soil. And if you've had Soils 101 or Soil 213 or whatever number that it is now, it's half voids and half solids. So we think. But the native grass isn't that. It's about 1/3. It's 2/3 voids, like the number said. So I'm not being critical of that image out there, because that's the image, that's the norm. Okay, that's the norm. This should be the norm. This stores the water. Steve Kenyon was talking about water, and water in the ground, and water storage. This is where it's at. Not out there with the half and the half. The conventional till is the half and the half. The conventional till is the half and half. The conventional till is the norm. So I took those numbers and I put them on the chart just to see what would happen. And ideally, we want the voids half full of water and half full of air. So that's what I did here. This is the porosity that was measured in each one of these samples. And so you could see we got a lot more water storage capability in the native grass and even in the soil health system than we do in the tilled system. So why is the delta getting bigger off of Louisiana? Why did someone say they flew over there and they looked down and they couldn't believe their eyes? They couldn't believe their eyes. And why did Dr. Bob Cole, a geologist in my past, a mentor, why did he say we got an ecological disaster waiting to happen in the Gulf of Mexico? It's happening now with the biology, but wait until that delta inverts itself. He said it's going to just slump right into the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not trying to be an alarmist and create anything, but this stuff is real. I mean, it really is real. So anyway, the science is absolute proof that soil health practices improve soil health. It is. And I'm extremely thankful to have worked with those two guys. They're not at SDSU anymore. They moved on to better things in their career, and I'm happy for them. So the summary is, really, you can't do that here. Really, you should do this everywhere. And I don't think we have a choice. And I'm not a tree hugger, and I'm not an environmentalist, but hey, it's all about our history. It's who we are. It's your ancestors. I tried to build that through my presentation, and that's what it's all about. Do I have time for questions? Yes. Who's paying the most? I can't answer that, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Let me know too. Yeah, let me know. Anybody else? That was a great question. Yep.
How about incorporating livestock? Where do you think you'd be with livestock incorporated?
I think we would have been down our trail a lot more quickly.
How much is a lot more quickly?
I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I know it was wrong to just focus on the tillage. It was wrong to just focus on the no-till. But that's how we evolved. That's how our farm evolved. It's about the biology is what it's about. But it's about keeping pores open to the surface, and that's where the tillage comes in. Get the water in the ground. Don't stop the water. You want me to say half as long? I could say half. I don't know. I don't know. You do with what you do. You do what you can with what you got. That's what you do. Anybody else? Well, I'm always around.
Anthony?
Question? Yeah.
Could you, I don't know if you can go back or not, but the slide where your top producing soils, you would put less nitrogen on than your low producing soils. I was wondering if you could explain that or go
Sure.
into more. I guess because we have variable rate, and I guess we kind of do the opposite, where we're putting more nitrogen on, shooting for the moon on our good stuff and backing way off on our lower producing.
Well, it's intuitive that where you think you're going to get the highest crop, you need the most nitrogen. Right? That's true. You do. But when my friend who's in this room convinced me that your good soils will work for you and that your poor soils aren't working for you as much, that's where you need your highest N rate. Especially if you're going to be way under the recommendation. And I'm way under it. So this zone, and I struggled with putting yield maps up, and I struggled with putting even that yield slide up. I don't want to be in a place of bragging, and I got to get over that. But anyway, that zone, number 1, I got this old combine, and when it goes over 250 bushels, I know it. Okay? And when it goes over 300, I really know it. And it did on zone 1 in 3 different places in 3 different fields. In a small area. And I'm convinced, I'm doubtful of yield monitors just like everybody else is. Oh, it's the yield monitor doing that. Yeah, but those yields that were there, the 150 was real. That field did 150, and that yield monitor showed that. So those 3 areas that went over 300 got my attention because the combine was going 0.7, 0.8 miles an hour, and it was, is this thing going to explode? Then I remember my friend Bruce saying, them older combines just aren't made for these bigger yields, and he is right. And I am looking for a different combine, but I like my old one too much. So, but anyway, those zone 1s are giving me big yields with the lower rate because the soil's working more there. And that's. Am I recommending this to everybody? No. I think you need to experience this first and evolve your way into that. Okay? But my friend convinced me this is what we're doing because he's seeing that. And there's nothing like locally experienced soil fertility guidance. Dave Franson, I can say he's a mentor of mine. I never worked directly with him. Oh, maybe on a couple of projects, but he says all fertility recommendations are local. Yeah, we have our big SDSU recommendations. We want you to follow that, of course. It's a guideline. I mean, it's really a good guideline, a good place to start, but if you've got local experience, that's golden. But it's got to be good experience. I'm not just talking, I saw this or I see this. And it's got to be, year after year, time after time. So, yep.
Anthony, on your rotation, I couldn't quite see all that. It was pretty small. So from today, where are you in your rotation? You're over the next, what do you do, 5-year, 4-year?
I started in 13.
Yeah.
It's a 5-year rotation.
Yeah.
So some of my fields are entering the third, going to enter the third cycle.
So those fields, where will they go from now in terms of corn or beans, or you said you had oats in the rotation?
Yeah, I follow, let's see, where was that at? I follow this map.
Yeah, I couldn't read that.
Yeah, I know, it's small. I just wanted to show you the concept, but I follow this map. And it's going to have to there's going to have to be a catastrophic event to get me off of that map.
So where will that go from now then?
Well, here's 2022. I know how many acres of corn, beans, and oats, and then cover crop. I'm going to have almost 200 acres of cover crop next year. I've got that foundation triticale field and the 49 of soft white winter wheat. So where those fields fall into the cover or the small grain part, I've got 3 crops this year because of profit and marketability and potential for making money. Isn't that what we all want to do? Yeah. So I've got a foundation triticale field. I've got the only seed.
SDSU Foundation Triticale?
No. It's a long story.
Okay. And you got the only seed, huh?
Well, a seed company said, "Can you grow this for me?" I said, "Absolutely, I want to grow that for you." So I did. I don't know if I should say. I got to respect my seed supplier. I'm not going to say. I want to respect my seed grower, and then that's the only reason, okay? So there's my farmer answer, not my SDSU answer, right? Okay. You don't like it? I've grown it before. Fridge got that tall. 7 feet, 8 feet. Blew over really bad. But
Anthony, I got a couple of questions from some students. What do you feel are the easiest soil health practices to implement on an operation?
oh my, good question, because we saw the tillage as number one because that's what we could manipulate right away. That's what we understood, right? Was it the easiest? No, because we went through the 90s and it rained every other day. And you remember 93? Do you remember that? Floods all over. We planted and grew a crop that year. Well, it was a challenge. But the no-till, because we didn't have good enough soil health, made it more difficult. So you got to do all of them. And I gave the example without livestock. I'm not against livestock. I have all you, my friends, have livestock. You're in a better place than me. I mean, but I don't have time. I got to work for SDSU.
So I got 2 more. How long does it take to start seeing the benefits of utilizing soil health practices?
Yeah, get asked that all the time. By 7, 8, 9 years on our farm, that's when we realized those terraces could go because our infiltration was improving. That's just with changing tillage. I didn't see earthworm middens until I changed my rotation, really. I was seeing some, but when I grew a small grain and a cover crop and the diversity and all of that, those night crawlers just exploded. Just unbelievable. So you can tell we needed something. So I think they're all easy economically. The other crop is harder. I mean, you got to make money. You got to, when you're growing oats, triticale, and soft white winter wheat, I just didn't grow them and put them in the bin. You can't do that. You got to make phone calls
Yeah, I
and
guess
try to find those markets.
That kind of leads to the next question on how much of an economic benefit is there to implementing these soil health practices?
We had a really good year. And sure as heck, the reason I'm so reluctant to want to really share what I do is I'm one of these that believes the next year I'll have the worst year of my life. And then, everything that I said was it a lie? I don't want anything to be that way. But it's real. It's so real, and Al Miron was my champion.
Anthony,
Yes,
back on your slide that showed your fertility rates.
yes,
that Candace referenced. If you look at that 120 and if you use the 0.8 nitrogen efficiency factor, the sweet spot that several of the speakers talked about, that's only fertilizing for 150 bushel corn.
right.
How are you deriving those numbers? You're obviously way off the chart as far as recs from industry representatives, but I'm just curious how you got to that number. Is it years of experimenting?
Yeah, I think it's just knowledge on my place. I really do. It's not the SDSU Rex.
And you're not dropping organic matter at the same time either.
No, I'm not, because the organic matter data is showing that upward trend. Now, Mark, admittedly, I've only done this type of thing for really three good years, but I've always been a person that's been on the yield response curve, Mark. I'm always on that. I want to be on that, not on the peak. I mentioned we go for net profit, not gross bushels. That's been my guiding principle. And if you understand those things, you'll try to be on that. But the last thing I want someone to do, I want to do no harm. I don't want someone to go out and say, Anthony cut his end rates, I'm going to too, and then they have a disaster. Don't do that. Okay, don't do that.
Thanks, Anthony.
Slide into that thing, okay?
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, okay.
Just keep on schedule here.